Okay, it is 9 o'clock, so I will go ahead and call this work session to order. And just for the public who may watch this video later, the purpose of today's work session is just for us to go over the 3 competitive grant programs and make any changes we'd like to see. One of the things as we go through that I'd like to see if we can do is make the guidelines as evergreen as we can, meaning that unless we feel like there's something we need to change next year, we wouldn't have to go back and reapprove them, if that makes sense. I think now that this will be the 3rd year in, it feels like we've kind of got things mostly fine-tuned. So I'm hoping this will be the last major review that we need to do, and then in the future we can just tweak here and there as things come up. So with that, I'm thinking let's maybe start with the capital investment grants, and I'm going to attempt to share my screen and capture any changes while we're doing this. So wish me luck.
Luck.
Oh, except the host has disabled participant screen sharing. So Teresa, can you see and allow me to screen my share or share my screen? Oh, it looks like I can do it now.
Yeah, I just did it as soon as you started saying you didn't have it.
Let's see there. Can you guys see it?
Yeah.
Yes.
Woohoo!
And us
Victory.
too. Look at that.
Victory. So let's just start on page 1. The forward just describes basically what the capital investment grant is for. I didn't see anything that we need to change on that. Did either of you guys have any?
No.
Okay. Eligibility criteria. We've got our list of eligible entities. These are obviously the same as last year. Eligible are nonprofit, community service providers, government agencies and special districts. Ineligible are for-profit businesses and faith-based organizations. Does that look still good to everybody?
It does to me.
It does to me.
Okay. Then allowable grant fund uses, certain equipment purchases, supplies and materials, contractor and consultant costs. And then last year we decided to make a note so that folks knew that the investment grant funds were for requests above $20,000, and that if they were requesting $20,000 or less, that they should be going through the special projects grant program. Any changes to that?
I don't have any. Kelly Smith, have you heard anything about there being other things that people might want to add to that, or are those broad enough that it's covered what our applicants are looking for?
I haven't heard any feedback from anyone requesting anything different.
Okay. How about, let's go into the general fund guidelines. Again, these are standard. The one thing that we always discuss is the match funding. It's 35%. That was what it was the first year, and we did it 35% last year. I'm comfortable with keeping with 35%, but I just wanted to flag that and see if you guys wanted to adjust that at all.
I think it's working at the level it's at.
It seems to be.
Yeah, I mean, so far, these are big enough grants that generally, you know, it's the school districts that tend to be in this pool, and they have not had any problem coming up with the match so far. And then the smaller projects, some of our organizations, because they can use in-kind, it seems to be working. So let me see if there's anything else. I think that's pretty straightforward. The review process is the same that we've done the last 2 years. This one goes through the budget committee. So we do the, well, in both cases, This is the one that we have 2 funding cycles. So we've got the review committee that takes a look at it, provides recommendations to the budget committee, and then the budget committee determines funding levels, which I thought it went very smoothly again this year, having them part of that. The fall cycle is open now, and so I think we had discussed seeing if the budget committee members would be willing to weigh in as part of that review process and send the recommendations to the county court for final approval.
Okay. I had someone suggest that we maybe be a little more structured in our review committee and maybe say, a two years, so that each committee member serves for 2 years, and then we rotate someone else into that just to get some new perspective, because a lot of these are all looking at, some of them have applied for the same thing over and over again, and maybe some new perspective would be good. I know Nathan had said to me that having Teresa new this year brought new eyes to these some of these applicants, because she wasn't that close to knowing what these people were doing. So I don't know about how that wouldn't be part of this application process, but how do we maybe structure our review committee?
So I think go ahead, Leslie.
I had a question about that too. The review committee, has it been the same for all 3 grants, all of the 3 grants, or is it slightly different between a couple of them?
So, the review committee for this one and the operational support grant, last year's committee was Nathan, Chris Patnode, and Teresa. The year before that, it was Sandy was here, so it was Sandy, Nathan, and Chris Patnode. The special projects grant 2 years ago would have been, I think it was Nathan, Sandy, and Rachel Weinstein. And then this year it was Teresa, Nathan, and Chet Wilkins. So to your point, Sherry, one of the other pieces of feedback that I got from one of the committee members was maybe considering us considering including some non-county personnel on that review. And
Yeah,
so
member at large would be good.
That would be very good. At least one from outside the offices. Yeah.
So I'm thinking what we may do is just as part of our committee appointment process that we normally go through for other committees, that we just formalize that recruitment kind of thing and that way we can post in the Times Journal and solicit interested people to participate on the committee. And who knows, if we get enough public people, it may be that it's less of an in-house committee. I think we originally started with mostly in-house because the first year was such a tight time frame. There wasn't really time to appoint public members and things like that. But now that we have plenty of time to sort of plan for that, I don't see why we couldn't see how much interest there is, and then maybe fill in the gaps with county personnel if we don't have a huge amount of interest from the public in sitting on that.
That sounds great.
Does that sound workable?
Yes.
Sounds good.
Okay. Anything to update on the review process? Or does that?
Yeah, I don't have anything.
I don't either. It seems like it's working well.
Great. All right, we'll go on to the next one. So we'll go to page 3, the merit review criteria. We've sort of just set this out every year. I'm not sure how much the review team, I mean, it's not like they have a score sheet and stuff like that. So I don't know if maybe the review team could, or Nathan and Teresa, since they were both on it, is that even helpful? Is that, I mean, I don't know if it's even being used, I guess is what I'm asking.
The score sheet itself, I think, is being used. It's kind of one of those things, everybody scores it maybe a little bit different, but we're just looking for a ranking at the end of the day.
Right. But I mean, in terms of when you look at it, are you looking at like, okay, 60% of the score goes to benefit of the county? Or
I don't know, in my
is that
case,
the
at least, it's that precise.
Okay.
I mean,
Oh,
we
go
spend
ahead.
maybe a couple hours in the meeting, so I don't know that we spend that much time really getting down to an exact percentage.
I agree with Nathan. I didn't really use that much.
So the question I have for the commissioners then is this something that we feel is beneficial to leave in there, or should we, I mean, I don't
I'd
know
interject,
if
it's
it's
nice to have
helpful
a
or
target or a goal, but I don't know if the score sheet itself is necessary. But if you put forth, oh, we would like to see some number or some percentage. I mean, it's kind of, I try to keep it in the back of my head.
Oh, okay.
And if we're going to, to put together a new committee, maybe this is a good criteria for them to work from, to realize what it is we're actually looking for. It gives them
Perfect.
just a guideline at least. I mean, they don't have to score and make sure. I mean, it's just that the bulk of it, we want to benefit the county, and then from there, the matching funds and the timeliness. But just so I don't know if we need to put a percentage of the score, but maybe just, what our priority is first. These are our priorities in this order.
Yeah, that would work too.
So do you want to just cut the like where it says 60% of the score, 25% of the score, and just leave the 3 bullet points of what we're looking for?
In order.
Yeah,
Thinking.
maybe that. Yeah, we'll see if that works.
Does that make sense, Nathan and Teresa? Do you think is that sufficient guidance, do you think, given what you know about the process?
Well, yeah, I mean, it's still ranked. I mean, we need to know what's most, I guess as a reviewer, you want to know what's most important and what's least important. So I'm trying to align the grants basically with what we want to see done. So
maybe in the following criteria will be considered in the review of grant applications in this order.
In order of priority.
order of priority. Yeah, that'd be fine.
Okay. And then just cut the percentages. Is that what we're thinking?
I could take them or leave them.
Okay. So if I cut these, see how slick this is?
That is pretty cool.
I can just do it right here so we can see what we're talking about. I love it.
I think taking those percentages out is a good idea.
Okay. So how do we feel about this now? That seems
I think it's good.
okay.
Yeah, it leaves them a little more flexibility in what they're looking at, rather than saying, oh, we want 60% of it to be this. Maybe it's only 45%, but it's still the highest part of.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sounds good. Okay, how about moving on to the funding decision? That's pretty straightforward. Budget committee makes the decision. Staff reports and recommendations are provided along with applications. Budget committee's decision is final. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. And then agreements are pretty standard. That language, we've used it. It's just a reminder that they're going to have to sign one in order to have their check. But any changes to the language there or typos that anybody saw?
I didn't see any.
Okay. We're clicking right along, ladies. And then reporting is just a reminder that they're also going to have reporting requirements, and that failing to meet that may preclude them from being eligible for future grants. Any questions or comments on that one?
Kelly Smith, do you see that that's working out okay? That criteria?
The first round of reporting was due just back in June, and we had quite a few people that needed a reminder. So I think I'll probably send out reminders next go around.
Okay.
But other than that, the reporting all went well.
Good. Okay.
Awesome. And then in terms of due dates, I think this is the area that I'd like to sort of cut the references to the actual application deadline and just sort of let Kelly pick those dates each year. I mean, roughly the same time, you know, so applications will be available. I'm wondering if we should even cut the reference to mid-January, because obviously the fall cycle comes out later in the year. So I'm wondering if we can just say applications can be obtained from the county treasurer's office. And then on the county treasurer's office, Kelly can actually post what the deadlines are for that year, if that makes sense. Does that sound workable for you guys?
Do we want to say anything about usually like the application deadline for the spring cycle is mid-March and the fall cycle is, you know, usually any kind of a,
Just some kind of a pinpoint so they are there, you know.
not?
So we could do you want to just do like, if we just did mid-March like this? Is that what you're thinking?
Even say typically mid-March, I don't know.
Yeah, no, that's great. Okay, now I'm typing in front of everybody.
Doing
And then
it.
You type like I do.
and then the fall application is typically late September, I think,
Yeah.
is when it's normally in.
And then can we say for specific dates? Well, I guess maybe up in the applications will be available and can be obtained from the Gilliam County's Treasurer Office or downloaded from the Gilliam County website. We see website for specific due dates.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
Yes.
How about that?
Yes, that looks good.
Does that work?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Kelly, does that work for you? Kelly and Nathan?
What
That
about
looks
saying,
good to me.
I'm sorry, excuse me. What about saying something in there about see website for, like how do you say when it opens? When applications are available and specific deadlines? Or
For
something like that.
let me see. How to say it?
I don't know.
Give me a second. I'm thinking about how to word that. See website for
Application availability.
there you go. I was getting there too, right about the same time you were. Application
And specific.
availability and specific deadlines. Does that work?
There you
Yes.
Okay.
go. And they won't be
And-
calling saying, when can we get these? They'll know they need to go to the website and look.
Exactly. Okay. Any other changes to due dates?
I think it looks good.
Great. I'm going to actually copy this language because it'll show up in other places. So I'm going to copy that and save this. Okay. All right. So that one is done. And how about let's do maybe special projects next, I think. Let me just share this really quick. Okay, so special projects. We'll just start with the forward. One of the things I'm wondering if we want to take out is the actual reference to the Economic Enhancement Fund and the number. Again, thinking that this will be an evergreen document, that we'll know what's set basically in there. So I'm not sure that we need to actually repeat the that 2% of the host fees, because that's set by ordinance already. What do you guys think about just cutting this little paragraph?
I think that'd be fine.
Yeah.
Take it out.
Cleans up a little bit, yeah.
Okay, so I will take that out. But in terms of the purpose, established for the purpose of providing financial support for small capital project requests of $20,000 or less and for community events in Gilliam County. One of the things that has come up, and I'm not sure how to address it, or if it needs to be addressed here, is we do have occasionally some one-off projects that don't fit neatly into this, if that makes sense. So like the binders that the cemetery district did last year for special projects, or our folks who have like need help building a website that's a one-time project kind of thing. So I don't know if we want to maybe revise that just slightly so that, I mean, I know generally when that comes in, Kelly just kind of flags it for me, and we tried our best to figure out which grant it needs to go under. But it might be helpful to at least allow in the language that certain one-time projects fit. And I don't know how to word that, but what do you think, Kelly?
I'm a numbers person, not a word person, but I think we do need to add something about one-time or short-term projects.
So what would you guys think about just revising this to say, for small capital project requests of $20,000 or less, community events, and for non-operational one-time projects or something like that. So we can make clear that we still don't want folks who are coming in for operational things, but for instance, like a website that's a one-time deal could be allowed, but not necessarily hiring somebody to upkeep it year after year,
Right.
if that makes sense.
Yeah, the initial project yeah. Yeah, we had some that kind of fell into that, didn't we, this past year? That, yeah.
Yeah, we did the Arlington Scholar or Education Foundation.
Yeah.
They had a few. The year before that, the Arlington Chamber did a website that came in under this. The South Cemetery District had their little binder project. So how do we want to phrase it? Non-operational one-time projects? Is that what we're thinking?
Does that describe it?
Operational.
Or non-operational?
Non-operational.
There you go.
The non is kind of up above. What do you think, Kelly and Nathan? Is that confusing or not?
Maybe a little bit.
It's a little wordy.
What if we just said, and certain one-time projects?
Okay.
And we,
I like that.
Yeah, that kind of, yeah, makes it less specific because some people might think, well, building a website is operational, so it doesn't, so I think, and certain is a good word.
okay. Awesome. Now for eligibility criteria, any changes? These are the same, we have the same eligible and ineligible entities as the capital projects one. Any changes to those?
I don't see any.
No.
Okay, and then allowable grant fund uses include community events, capital requests of $20,000 or less. Funds may be requested for direct project costs. So I'm thinking we probably need another bullet that says other one-time projects. I don't know what to, I don't know how specific, because these are really like, they can be really random sort of ideas.
Yeah.
So I feel like
Give
it's,
us some flexibility.
yeah. And I think as long as we're clear that they're not for normal operational expenses. So what if we added, to clarify what we mean by normal operational, the word ongoing, so that it's clear that like a one-time like website is fine, but hiring a web maintenance person would be an ongoing expense. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Yes.
Normal. So instead of normal, I'm going to say ongoing. Does that work?
Yes.
Okay. Kelly, is that clear as mud?
Clear as mud. No,
Okay.
I think that's good.
Okay.
You could even put in your examples, such as organizational dues, bank fees, ongoing website maintenance. You could throw a little more in there if you wanted.
I'm going to add that, seriously. There we go.
Isn't it supposed to say such as but not limited to? I mean, given the other things we've been reading lately.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
No kidding.
Yeah, no kidding. I think we're okay to say such as, but yeah, I take your point. We feel like all this legal jargon is like,
You need to put or in about 1,000 times without putting parentheses or commas around it, even though it's a clause.
that's the key to all of this. Yeah.
Sorry, I'm just twitching a little bit. I'll be fine.
So any other changes to allowable uses?
I think that looks good.
Okay, great. And then I'm going to just move this general guidelines over. So general guidelines are pretty standard. The 25% match is something we've had. That's been the same level from the beginning. That seems to be workable for folks, especially since most of these projects we're talking about fairly small dollar amounts, you know, a couple $1,000s, and so their match is pretty couple hundred usually. Any changes to the grant guidelines or general guidelines, I guess?
I don't have any.
I don't see anything.
Okay. How about the review process? Again, this would go through a review committee. So we would, just as we spoke about earlier, we would do a recruitment for who those members are and appoint them officially before the beginning of the grant season. And then that team makes a recommendation to, in this case, the county court for the funding decision.
Is it going to be are we talking about having the same review committee for all of the grants?
Yeah, that's a good question.
Because I was wondering if you had a whole lot of interest, you know, maybe you could split one up for this one specifically, or I don't know. I haven't really thought about that much because we just started talking about it today.
Yeah, I mean, I think it depends. Definitely, if we put out a call for volunteers and we had 10 people raise their hands, we could definitely have maybe even 3 different committees, one for each of the programs, kind of thing. So I think we can just wait and see how much interest there actually is from the public in participating. And then obviously we want to be careful that whoever we're appointing isn't also applying in that pool. But yeah, I don't see why there couldn't be, if there's enough interest. I mean, we've certainly done that in the past where we've had different people looking at this program versus the other two. So.
Okay, sounds good.
Any changes you guys want to make to the process?
Did Kelly and Teresa, did this process seem, it works well, doesn't it? Or is there, you have any comments on anything that could be better or?
I think it seems to be going well. I haven't really heard any negative feedback, so I think we're doing good.
Okay, good.
Yeah, I thought it was a pretty good process as well.
Thank you.
Awesome. Okay, well, if there's no changes to that, do we want to make the same change to the merit review criteria as we did in the others?
Yes.
What was the language that you used, Leslie?
In order of priority.
Right.
Okay, in order of priority, and we can cut these little references. Okay, does that look good for merit review criteria?
Yes.
Very good.
Okay, and then the funding decision. Says that the court will review the applications during regularly scheduled and noticed meetings, usually in June. I'm comfortable saying usually in case if something happens and we miss it and we're in early July, I think that's okay. Any changes to the funding decision language?
No.
Okay. And then same thing with, let me see here. The agreements and the reporting, I think that's the exact same language as in the others. So any changes there?
Nope.
Nope.
And then we have the unclaimed funds language. And this one I want to make just double check since it's Nathan and Kelly that have to do this. Is that language okay? Are there any problems with it? With having unclaimed funds just returned back to the original pool?
I don't know, Kelly and I's discussion really centered around whether that was even necessary. I mean, it's in the ordinance,
Okay.
but you know, we get back to harmonizing the ordinance with the application again. Evergreen, right?
Yeah.
So anytime that something's repeated like that, it can create a issue.
So commissioners, do you have any issues with just cutting the reference to unclaimed funds? Because the ordinance directs the treasurer on what to do with those funds every year.
Because really one of the discussions we kind of had, we're not to the economic enhancement ordinance yet, but one of the discussions we kind of had is that carrying things forward in the budget becomes very cumbersome, as I'm sure you're all aware since you sit on the budget committee. So the treasurer, at least, is not a fan of doing that anyway. And generally there's plenty of funding available for the projects. So, I mean, if you feel strongly that it should be carried forward, I mean, we should leave this in there, but I don't think it's much of an issue.
We regularly have less applications than what we have allocated.
Yeah, so there's not really we're not against the ceiling, so to speak.
Does this happen often, unclaimed funds?
It has happened. It's happened a couple times. One of them was returned, actually. The project didn't get done. But the thing is we weren't up against the limit, so we didn't need the funds, really.
But then what, if the applicant keeps the funds, then what do they do with them?
Yeah.
Say that again, Sherry.
If the applicant, we're talking about them not returning the unused funds, but doesn't that go against what we're trying to do here?
It does.
No.
This would be if they were awarded funds and they either didn't claim them, so they didn't sign a contract, or if they took the funds and then the thing didn't happen. All it says is that basically that money would be put back into the budget next year. So instead of having $100,000 available, you'd have maybe 110 or 100. And it's really unnecessary because the funding's in excess of the ask most of the time. I'd say 99% of the time.
But if someone doesn't complete a project that they say they're going to, do we want them to return that?
Yes, we do.
And that's stipulated in the grant agreement.
Ah,
So in
okay.
their signed grant agreement, it says if they don't use the funds, they have to return them.
Okay, so then that's where we're double. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's just my concern is if it's in the grant agreement, then this really is unnecessary.
What are you thinking, Leslie?
Yeah, that's fine, as long as they know, as long as it's clear.
Yeah, the grant agreements definitely spell out. And then in terms of administration wise, the ordinance tells Nathan what he has to do with those funds already. So
Right.
it is just restating things that are already established in existing policy. So I will go ahead, if there's no objections, and delete that section. Are you guys okay with that?
Sounds like a plan.
Okay, delete that. And then we'll move the due dates so they're all on one page. I'm going to add the language, if it's still in here, from last time. And then we're going to add Leslie's typically, and then do mid-May. Does that work? We'll take this out. How does the due dates look?
Good.
Yeah.
Does that work for you, Kelly?
Works for me.
All right. Okay, any other changes to this one? We're comfortable with it?
I'm good.
All right, off to the next one. I'll close this one out. And we'll do operational. And then we'll go ahead and share screens. Share. Okay, start with the forward. Pretty straightforward. I don't think we touched the language last year either. Anything you want to change on the forward?
No, I don't have anything.
I do not either.
Okay, and then eligible entities, same ones as the others. So I assume those are fine by everybody. You guys good?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. And then we've got allowable grant fund uses, pretty standard operational stuff, employee salaries and benefits, operational expenses, supplies and materials, strategic planning expenses. Any changes?
I think we should consider not allowing salaries and benefits. I know that's been something that's come up in discussions before.
Aha.
I guess I was thinking that was this one, since it is operational, that would, I don't know, I've liked having that included. What do you guys think?
I mean, I think we definitely want to start moving folks to figuring out how to pay for their employees without relying on these funds. But I'm wondering if this would cause for some people, like it might be something we need to phase in, is what I'm thinking. Because I think some of our folks may freak out, the ones who rely on this pretty heavily to keep their people. But to Kelly's point, what we tend to see from, even though we discourage them from using the money to fund their people, when they show us what the county funds are going to go towards, almost always they put them behind hiring people or keeping them on. So I definitely, and maybe that's something that I can communicate. Each of them are supposed to be sort of meeting with me to talk about their sustainability plans. And so maybe that's something that I can just convey one-on-one when I'm meeting with those boards is to say, you know, the court really would like to see you relying less on county funds to support personnel so that, you know, you're sure that you've got enough funding to keep people employed, and using that money more for the other things like the electric bill and you know, the other operational expenses kind of thing. Does that sound
Yes.
workable?
Do you think if we moved it from the first bullet point to the last bullet point, it would change its perspective a little bit? I mean, because when we say, okay, in this order, this is how we want you to match them, it to me it says, okay, first of all, you can use these for employee salaries. Second of all, operation expenses. Does that mean, am I just,
I don't think it would hurt to move it to the end.
is my perception off, or?
We could do that. That's very simple. Hold on, let me cut.
And lastly, if you absolutely have to,
Absolutely necessary.
How about that?
I don't know, does that make it look different, or is it just in my perspective?
I can't deal with it. It's not in alphabetical order.
Sorry. Neither is nonprofit organization, community service provider, government agencies, special districts. Are you okay?
Good. I think it looks fine.
Okay, but I definitely think we need to, and hopefully if the public comes back and is watching this, I think the message we're trying to send to all of you folks is that we really would like to see you relying less on county funds to keep your folks employed, with the idea that as these funds dwindle off, we want to make sure that we're not having a bunch of people facing potential layoffs because we didn't plan on how to make this sustainable, I think is the message that we're trying to send. And that, you know, maybe something we could revisit in a year or two down the road is capping how much salary we'll cover. So saying we'll only cover half or we'll cover a percentage, and that sort of forces the issue with them on making sure that they're using funds to, or finding funds to be able to keep people employed. But I wonder if that's something we shouldn't first have the discussion with them about and sort of phase in over time so that we don't have folks freak out.
Panic room.
Exactly. Anything else that we want to look at for the allowable use or non-allowable use of funds?
I don't have anything.
Okay. So under the general guidelines.
Can I ask I'm sorry, Judge Farrar, can I ask a quick question about that?
Of course.
There's nothing that we've noticed in the past few years that we could have included that's not on there that should be? Yep, we haven't seen anything like that, have we? Has anybody been excluded?
I don't think so.
Okay.
Kelly, do you remember anybody that's not fit in there?
No, I think these are just, this isn't a fully exhaustive list of all grant fund uses allowed. So I think anything that's been standard operating expenses has been allowed and approved.
Okay, great.
Yeah, the operational expenses has been, I think, broad enough that we could fit it under there. In terms of the general guidelines, last year we bumped up the minimum to 15%. Any changes you want to make to the match level?
Do we want to increase that due to the fact that we're trying to push them more to be sustainable? Do we want to?
How well are people being able to meet? Are they going way over, or are some entities having trouble getting to 15%? What do we?
Most entities were 30% plus. We only had 2 that were closer to 20%. And they probably, I'm sure, you know, with a little work, they could probably come up with a little more.
So are you guys thinking you want to keep it at 15 or maybe look at bumping it to 20?
I'd like to see us bump it just because we are trying to get them to move. And if they are, you know, if 15 is kind of low, then maybe we'll give them some incentive to, as Kelly has mentioned.
You okay with that, Leslie?
That sounds fine.
Okay, so I'll put 20% in there. Any other changes to the general guidelines? Again, this one goes before the budget committee.
Looks good.
Okay. How about the sustainability plan guidelines? These were new last year. We kind of fleshed them out. I think as part of their grant agreements, most of the organizations are required to meet with me 2 times during this year to talk about where they are in their sustainability. And so my hope is that part of that discussion is helping them refine their plan a little bit more and kind of digging into potential revenue sources that they may have overlooked when they were doing their plan, kind of helping them with that. So I still think it's good to have sort of a general guideline of what we're looking for in those, but I'm curious if there's anything that we need to refine or if that seems sufficient for what we're doing.
Are you finding the working with these organizations to be working out? And
so I haven't started this year's meetings yet. The ones that I worked with prior to the last grant, I think it was for the ones who took advantage of it, I think it was really helpful to have an outside person who's not in their world every day asking questions, just because I think it got them thinking about their revenue in different ways. And so, I mean, the feedback I've gotten from them is that those interactions were helpful to them to think about how their business or organization runs. So my hope is that as that becomes more of a regular expectation, that we'll start to see some of these folks moving towards more sustainable sources of revenue, basically. But of course, with COVID, it's kind of thrown everybody, you know, our child cares and all, you know, a lot of the folks that we fund, there's a lot of questions, I think, for them about what their financial picture is going to look like for obvious reasons outside of their control. So, so we just keep moving up. I mean, I think what I have noticed when I'm speaking with them now is that sustainability regularly comes up when they're talking about their project objectives or program objectives. So even just introducing that concept into the community, I think has been beneficial to make people aware that these funds do have sunsets. And so, you know, I think we've at least succeeded in that people are not going to be shocked in 5, 6, 7 years from now as the SIPs start rolling off that things might look a little bit different financially for the county in terms of what we can do to support them. So any edits to that, to those guidelines?
I don't have any.
I don't either.
Okay, so we'll move down into the review process. Again, pretty straightforward. Goes to the treasurer's office, goes to Kelly initially, then goes to the review committee, to the budget committee for final decision making. Any changes to that piece?
Nope.
I don't have any.
Okay, and then I feel like we use different language in the merit review criteria. This seems like a longer sentence. We just added in order.
In order of priority.
In order of priority. See, I've got pregnancy brain. I can't remember things anymore.
That happens.
Oh, just wait till you have a baby. You won't remember anything.
The struggle is real over here, ladies. So,
Baby
okay,
brain.
I'm gonna take off the percentages like we did with the others. Okay, does the merit review criteria look okay?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. And then, sorry, my little type A needs to get everything on the same page.
I'm with you.
We can read it all together. Under the funding decision, it just spells out that it's the budget committee that makes that decision.
Yep.
Everybody okay with that one?
Yep.
Okay. And then, of course, the agreements and reporting, that's our standard language that we use. So I'm assuming no changes there. And then I'm going to clean up this part, make it match with the others. Let me see here. Oh, that's not what I wanted. What did we say there? So what I will do is I will take the sentence that we put on the previous ones and I will add this before it comes before the court.
Something about for application availability and
I did write it all down.
deadlines. That sounds good. That sounds good.
Here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to say insert
Perfect.
website sentence.
There you
Okay.
go.
I'll clean that up after the meeting.
Okay.
And then the application deadline is typically March.
Mid-March? You want to say mid-March? Early March?
Let's do, I think we did mid-March on the other one.
Mm-hmm.
So let's do mid. Does that look okay?
Looks good.
Yep.
All right. Any other changes to this one?
I think we're ready.
Rockin'. Okay, I've saved it. I'll add that website sentence. And I will close this out and get us back out of here. Okay, so we are at 9:53 right now. Is there anything else on the grants before I close the work session?
I don't have anything.
I don't.
Okay, great. So I will, let's see, it's 9:53, so I will go ahead and adjourn the work session. The court is scheduled to start its regular meeting at 10. And so I want to make sure that obviously we start that one on time and don't jump ahead. So I think what we'll do, if everyone's okay, is just take a little break until 10. We'll still stay on the Zoom platform. So folks who are, I see we've got some folks from the public dialing in, just stay on here on this space and we'll reconvene at 10 o'clock and start the regular meeting.
Okay.
All right, I have 10 o'clock. So are we, yep, we are recording. So I will go ahead and call this meeting to order. I see that Commissioner Wilkins and Commissioner Weatherall are here on Zoom. And so we have a quorum. We'll go right into 2.0, which is additions and revisions to the agenda. Do you guys have anything to?
I do not.
You're muted, Sherry.
I do not. I was talking at the same time.
Okay. Well, then we'll move into 3.0, which is correspondence and public comments. We do have correspondence, and I see that Wayne is on here, and I'm assuming we'll also want to make public comment. And so I think I'll do the reverse of what we normally do and just note for the record that for correspondence, there is a letter here from Wayne Standiford regarding a request for us to consider a resolution for the censure of Governor Brown and providing some documentation. I won't go into the entire letter and the resolution since Wayne is here and can speak to that. But for those who are watching and want to read Wayne's letter and the supporting documents, those will all be available on the county's website under our agendas where we have all of our meeting materials. So that's all I have for correspondence, and I'll go into public comment. Individuals wishing to address the county court may do so at this time and at other times throughout the meeting. Speakers are asked to be recognized by the chair, give your name and address, and limit comments to 3 minutes. If you dialed onto the Zoom, you can there's a little button on the lower left-hand side that you can use to unmute yourself. If you dialed in from a landline or a phone, then you just need to hit *6 to unmute yourself. So is there any public comment? Wayne, did you want to talk about your letter and do your public comment? Maybe? May take him a second to get himself unmuted. Again, if you're on a phone, you can just dial *6, and it looks like he's maybe unmuted. Wayne, are you there?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yep, we can hear you.
Okay. Okay, good. Well, good morning, Court. Well, you've read the documentation, I hope, and my concern is that our governor is not upholding her oath of office. We know what's going on in Portland. It could come to any city in this state, and it needs to be dealt with, I hope peacefully. But according to Article 5, Section 9 and 10, she is to faithfully execute the law. And as citizens and officers of the court and officers of the city government, I feel it is our job to uphold the Constitution and demand that officers above us do the same. So that is the basis of why I wrote you folks. And hopefully you will seriously consider that the governor needs a strong message from all the county courts and all the citizens that she needs to uphold the Constitution and her oath of office, as well as the folks in the county court need to support the Constitution as per your oath and let the governor know that enough's enough. We need to deal with this violence. We can't be blaming everybody. We just need to deal with it. And she has the resources and the constitutional authority to do so. So that's basically what I've asked the court to do, is send a letter to Governor Brown censuring her and demanding her resignation because she has violated the Constitution of Oregon. And I referenced 3 cases where she has done so, the most blaring, Article 5, Section 9 and 10. So in a nutshell, that is it. So you guys need to decide whether you will do that or not and follow your oath of office. So with that, I've said my piece.
Thanks, Wayne.
Pardon?
Does anybody have, I said thank you. Does anybody have any follow-up questions or comments for Wayne? I mean, I will just say for the record, for folks who are curious, that, I mean, later this afternoon, every Wednesday, actually, I have regular calls with one of the governor's senior staff. It's not just me, it's other county commissioners that Leah holds with us to air just these concerns that Wayne is raising. And so I think the counties have been very, even though it's maybe not in the form of a letter or a direct confrontation with the governor, I certainly think that we have a responsibility to keep an open line of communication with her about things, our perspective, and make sure that Gilliam County is being heard in her office. My preference is to do that in a way that's going to be productive in terms of making sure that we have an open dialogue and that she can hear us. And so, I mean, that's sort of my take, is that we are reaching out to her and to her staff when we see things that really aren't working or causing concern for our folks. And so I'm happy, Wayne, to pass that along to Leah when I have the conversation with her this afternoon, that we continue. And I think lots of Oregonians are concerned with the violence that we're seeing, not just in Portland, in other communities as well. And obviously there's no place for that, for violence, from either side. So that's my 2 cents.
That's a good first step, and I hope they will listen. She has taken an oath, and you know, she needs to follow up and stop this. It's been going on too long. We've had at least one death in the streets, and who's to say it won't come to our area? These folks need to be dealt with, and I hope it's peaceful, but so far it hasn't been. I hate to see people get hurt, but the only barrier we really have between tyranny and anarchy is our Constitution, and it's up to each of us as citizens and government officials to uphold it and demand that our folks do in higher office. So I'm hoping they will listen. That's a good first step, and I'm hoping that if not, you will let me know and the county know, and we'll go from there. But we have to use the Constitution peacefully. That's what my hope is, but we got to support it or we're going to lose it.
Thanks, Wayne.
Okay, well, thank you for the time. Have a good meeting. I've got to book off to Portland, so pray for my safety.
Have a safe drive.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Does anybody else, any other members of the public have any public comments? Again, if you dialed in by your phone, you just push *6 to unmute. If you're joining us from Zoom, there's a little button on the lower left-hand side of the screen where you can unmute your phone. Anybody? I'll give everybody just a second.
I can't hear you, Liz.
Hello.
Sorry, I muted myself. What I was saying, which was witty and brilliant, was that we're pretty informal around here, and so if folks decide as we go through the meeting that they want to add comment, you're always welcome to raise your hand, interrupt us, and provide that feedback. So with that, let's go into the agenda, and we'll go right into 4.0, the consent agenda.
Commissioner Wilkins, did you have any questions, or Judge Farrar, any questions with this?
I did not.
I would go ahead and move that we approve the consent agenda.
I'll second.
It's been moved and seconded that we approve the consent agenda, which consists of consider of approval of August 19th regular meeting minutes, consider approval of August pending review, and consider approval of proclamation of support for Zero Suicide Initiative. Is there further discussion? All
Aye.
those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? The motion carries. Okay, let me just transition here. We'll go into 5.0, which is old business. And first up is 5.1, which is discussion with Waste Management Senior Management, Dave Lowe, who is the Director of Disposal Operations. And I thought I saw, there he is. I'm like, you're right in the middle of my screen. Hey, Dave.
Judge
Good morning.
Farrar,
How are you?
Good morning, Mr. Lowe.
I'm good. Sherry, did you have something?
Morning.
I have something.
Leslie, go ahead.
Before we get started, I just would like to declare a potential conflict of interest. I know we're probably just having a discussion at this point in time and not making any decisions, but I checked with the Ethics Commission again, and they said it's just best just to, at this point in time, declare potential conflict of interest. And so, because my husband is an employee of Waste Management. So
Got it.
that, and then you guys can carry on.
Noted for the record. So Dave, I think originally we had originally invited you because we were going to be talking about maybe doing chamber donations in lieu of energy host fees. And I understand that things have sort of, Waste Management's thinking on that has shifted a little bit. And so I wonder if maybe you can update us on the chamber donations and kind of where we are with that.
So did you happen to hand out the information I gave you in the email?
I don't know that got forwarded to everybody. If you could recap it for us, and I'll make sure we make that part of the record.
Sure, absolutely. So with the investigating that I had done, it became obvious that WMRE is the division in our company that actually runs and operates the gas plant. They're actually somewhat of an entity on their own within our operation. So as far as expansion of the gas plant and a revenue share, really they need to be at the table discussing that. So as you know, in the past, and it just expired, that there was an agreement between Dennis and Paul Burns that we would donate $25,000 a year to the two chambers for a 5-year period. Now that expired in 2019, so we've been looking into it. What I find right now is that WMRE did not know that they were required to bring that to the table. They do now. They have agreed that when they expand, they have every intention of coming to the table and discussing that. So what's done is brought clarity to that whole situation, and us moving forward, there's going to be a disconnect between the chamber donation and the energy produced. So Waste Management, one more way we're going to contribute to the society is we are proposing we're going to donate to those two chambers in the same amount for the next 5 years. So I think we have that separated. WMRE has every intention of coming to the board when and if they expand.
Okay.
Yep.
And is that
Questions on that? Is that clear?
That's pretty clear. Did you? I know that when you were looking at the donations, that was still up in the air to make sure that you were going to have that was early enough in your donation decision making. So is that for sure that those donations are going to go to the chambers?
I'm fairly confident. Obviously, working with a large corporation, things sometimes change, but I actually approved those this morning. So my guess is it happens.
Great. Great. And then, Sherry, did you have some questions, some other questions or things you wanted to raise? I know that was the main topic for me, but I know Commissioner Wilkins had some other things to possibly raise.
Thank you, Judge Farrar. First of all, I want you to know that the landscaping and grounds around both chemical waste and Columbia Ridge landfill are probably the best I've ever seen them. And it looks great out there. John deserves a pat on the back for the work he's doing. I can say this with confidence because I was in charge of that when I left, and it looked nothing like that, although John had just started and was working towards that. So kudos to your first impressions at those lower offices. It looks really nice. And I also drive out there occasionally. The rail bed is clean, looks good all the way out. When I was there this week, there was no trash along the roadway. So kudos to that. I know the trash, the pickup has been limited due to the prisoner group, the crew that was doing that prior to COVID. So I want you to pass that along. Let people know that we appreciate.
Well, I appreciate that.
What they're doing.
So I could add
Okay.
a bit, please.
Yeah.
Okay, so something, I've been in the landfill business for 40 years. I've always felt that our landfills should look like a park. That's something I brought with me in this position is I want our facilities to look, and my motto is park-like setting. So we're not only doing that at that location, we're doing it at all the landfills that I'm over. And that's exactly what I expect. So yes, we're heading in the right direction and we're going to continue to get better.
Yep, it looks great.
And the litter crew issue, as you know, the litter crew has been somewhat of an issue. I think we're close to signing an agreement with the company that will be able to provide people to get that taken care of.
The Stone Ranch barn, is there a plan to pick up that sad situation? We're sad because it was a beautiful old barn.
Yeah, and unfortunately, that's occurring all over the country because there are a lot of beautiful old structures. Honestly, I haven't given that much thought. I mean, have you had any discussions with anybody on possibilities, or do we feel it's just something that's probably just going to go away?
Well, I think it's kind of an eyesore. People, for our community, that was a historic building, and so if we could clean it up, that would be great. I know there's a lot of good old barnwood there. I don't know what that would look like if there were people interested in preserving some of that, but
Okay, Sherry, what was the name of it?
it's the barn on the Stone Ranch. It's right on Highway 19.
Okay.
Everybody
Okay,
out there
to be
knows.
honest with you, I haven't had much.
Yeah, everyone out there knows.
Okay, no, I will look at that and then I'll get an answer on what's going to happen.
Okay, great. I've tried to make some contact with Jason Seeger, the train master for Watco. And we were going to meet, and then they were up in the air about their contract, and he was awfully busy. So that didn't happen at this point. Now he's on vacation. So I've been trying to get an update on the contract situation. We've heard a couple of different things, and I got one scenario from Jason initially, and then something else from Waste Management. Could you update us on the contract, and is it back to what it was, or is there some changes?
My understanding is that they re-signed and Watco will continue.
Just in the same manner they were.
Yes, correct.
You?
I don't know the particulars, but that's the level I do know.
How is the hiring process going? I know that we've cut our pool of employees in the area, and our housing issue is not helping that any.
Yes. No, and that's a great topic to bring up, and I appreciate that. Many of you may know that we actually are running buses from several locations to bring employees in. I mean, obviously, we all would love to have those employees living in the general area. If I could make the call for the funds that are in the economic development funds that you guys hold, I would say build apartments, build houses, start bringing those folks in and growing your neighborhood. And you have the funding to do it, and I really think you should move forward with that. It's going to help the landfill, which helps the county, which helps everybody. And increase the size of the marina significantly so I can bring a boat down there.
Yeah, we have.
But no, that's all. Sorry, go ahead.
We have PCDC, which is Pioneer Community Development Corporation, working diligently to help build some homes and get some more housing in. And Rob's going to give us a report here later in the meeting. So he does a great job, and they're working hard at that.
Yeah, I mean, obviously we don't want to have to bus in employees. It would be ideal if they all lived in the community. That would be perfect. So hopefully we can get there somehow.
Okay.
That includes management.
Right. That would be nice if management actually lived in the community.
And I understand that. I get it.
Yeah.
Now with the Zoom, it's almost like I'm living in the community with you.
Additional questions for Dave. Leslie, do you have anything that you wanted to raise?
No, I think Sherry has asked some of my questions as well. That covers what I was interested in too.
Yeah, and I think in terms of one other issue that's come up is, of course, the railroad crossing and the relocation of Cedar Springs Lane. Sort of where we are on that, or where we left it, I think, is we were going to do some cost analysis of different cost sharing scenarios. I think it sounds like maybe I might be passing that off to Sherry, to Commissioner Wilkins, since I have maternity leave coming up here in a couple of months. I don't want to drop the ball on that one. So I think Sherry will probably be the point of contact for that kind of end of the year, beginning of next year. I think we're still interested in discussing what we can do to alleviate backups at the crossing. Commissioners, did either of you have any thoughts on that or things you wanted to raise about the railroad crossing?
Well, that was one of the discussions I wanted to have with Jason Seeger, to see what Watco's stance was on that, as we've not really engaged them at all at this point to get their perspective of what's happening and what we might be able to do to help that in the long term. So I'm looking forward to trying to get Jason to sit down. Once they move into their beautiful new depot, I'm hoping that we get a chance to have a meet.
Then they're just in your neighborhood, Sherry. You can pop in for coffee.
Right down there. Yeah, I'm expecting to get with Jason when he gets back from vacation, and they'll be moving into the depot, and we'll go forward.
Great.
So we were very happy. Watco got re-signed, obviously. UP was going to take that over, and there were so many unknowns with that. That's good stuff. If you need help getting that meeting set up, let me know. I might be able to push it a little bit. So as far as the bypass road goes, obviously when you start talking about economic development funds, that road kind of fits into that niche fairly well. We are still willing to provide equipment and manpower when we can to help build that road. So that's definitely on the mark. Firefighting, I was told that we used to support firefighting in the county, and we haven't in the past. And that's something I understand, that in a situation where things are getting very bad and we could stop something, I feel we should be part of. The issue is that we work for a large corporation, and liability virtually controls and makes most of our decisions. So for us to help out, we could, but what would need to be done would be that the equipment and the employees that are out on fire patrol would need to be covered by the county insurance. And if all that was covered, then we don't have a problem with helping that way. And here's the issue. So let's say we send out a $200,000 road grader, and he's cutting fire line, and something happens and that machine burns to the ground. Waste Management, as a $14 billion a year company, is self-insured. So at that point, we have to spend that 100 or 200,000 to replace that piece of equipment. So two things: we don't buy the insurance to cover it because we're self-insured. But if you guys could cover in case of those situations, then we probably can get back to that helping out.
Great. That's something, I mean, we can definitely talk about that with our insurance folks and see what that would look like. And then I need to dig in a little bit because it's how all of that works, because we have two fire districts, obviously, that have their own insurance, and then the fire board.
Sure.
But I think it's worth exploring. Commissioners, what do you guys think on that?
Yeah, anything that would be an assist to our fire departments, that would be great.
Good.
I'm just making a note here.
Thank you for bringing that up, Dave.
So yes, no problem. And the fact you guys invited me in, I appreciate that. Obviously I like to talk about things that have taken place. Since I've taken over, I had a strong drive to get better wages for all the employees. That's happening, and it has happened. I'm working hard at working on that life work situation where they have time for their family and they need time for their family. So that's all being worked on. Obviously, when the times get busy, right, that's when we really have to step up, and we do. And the guys all do a great job. But those are things. Family's number one to me, and enjoying what you're doing is number two, and wages and all the above, holidays off, all of that is important. So believe it when I'm working on that kind of stuff, and I will continue to.
Thank
Great.
you.
It looks like we have a question from Jordan Anderson. Are you there?
I
Hi.
am. There. I got this
Go
figured
ahead.
out.
What's your question?
No, just mainly a comment on the part of the equipment, insurance, and all of that. It would probably be, what the word I'm looking for. Those people that would be out on that equipment would probably have to have some sort of wildland firefighting training to probably, I mean, when you talk to your insurance, that's probably what they're going to tell you, is that to be covered under that, those certain individuals will have to have some sort of training to fit the bill. That's all I wanted to add there.
Okay.
Thank
That's
you.
great, Sid.
Jordan.
Great
That's
input.
There you go.
Yeah, great.
Thanks,
And
Jordan.
that training,
Yep.
obviously, my guess is that training wouldn't be too intensive or too long, and that's something that we potentially could have the trainer on site, and we could train a group of folks that have volunteered to do that and get it taken care of, and I wouldn't have a problem with that at all. Work on our time when they're doing that.
Thank you.
That's a good idea.
Great. Yeah, we'll do some follow-up on our end to check on the insurance and figure out how the insurance for our fire districts works, where the county fits in with that, and just look at the financials and then circle back. But I think it's worth pursuing. Any resources that we can bring that help, I think, is always a good thing to go after. So.
Yeah, so far we've been fortunate to not have any significant fires in our county, but they are certainly raging around us. So
Exactly.
And we just never, just don't know when it's going to hit.
knock, knock, knock on wood.
Other issues or topics that either Dave, you wanted to raise, or commissioners, or questions from the public while we've got Dave here?
Oh, appreciate your time, Dave.
Great.
Yeah, and I will say, since we have you here, that I really appreciate Leah's efforts and outreach to the court. She was very helpful in the conditional use permit process. She shows up, every quarter to give us updates, and then calls us in between to update us on things as we need to know it. So I just really appreciate it. I know that's an addition to what she does in her day job, and I think that's really, that communication is very valued by me, and I think the commissioners probably feel the same way. So.
Yes,
So
definitely.
kudos to Leah. I see that she's on here, but I wanted to, it's always good to do a shout out.
Yes, she's been.
And I absolutely appreciate. Go ahead, Jeff.
Yeah,
Go ahead.
she's been really good about
Sure.
communicating with us, and when things come up, give us all a call, and I know that takes time out of her day, so we appreciate that very much.
Sorry, I missed you last night, Leah.
And I actually appreciate Leah than all of you do. She does a great job. She's a great resource. And that's a big reason why she's doing that now, is because I knew that would be a good fit and make changes for the best. Nothing I want more than to have a great relationship with the county and waste management.
Yeah, we appreciate that. So if there's no further topics or things we want to raise, I think thanks for coming and joining us, Dave. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Okay. You guys have a great day.
You
Be
too.
safe.
Look forward to seeing you
You
in
too.
person time, maybe. That would be good.
What's that, Sherry?
Thank you.
I'm hoping that maybe next time we can see him in person. Wouldn't that be fun?
You just
Well,
never
we're-
know.
We'll work on that place for your boat. You can come down.
Oh, perfect. Okay.
All right.
you.
Thanks for your time, Dave. All right. So under old business 5.2, just a quick update on building codes, which is that we got the very first really rough draft back from the state now about a week and a half ago. And so our council, Christy, took a quick look at it, gave some initial feedback to them. Our request has been that the state's attorneys do the heavy lifting on the initial drafting, so that the city of Boardman and the county aren't paying so many legal fees to cover that. So I'm hoping the DOJ attorneys will be turning around a draft here in the next month or so. They're a little slow, I think, on turning things around, but my hope is that we would have an agreement that we could look at later this fall, early winter. So that is moving along. I think that partnership seems to be one that's going to be a solid one, and hopefully that will give our, speaking to Dave's comment about housing and things like that, a little bit more certainty to our contractors in terms of what that permitting and inspection process could look like as they start planning out projects for next year. So just wanted to let you know, we're still on track for that, but we're just waiting for the state to give us a more thorough draft for council to review. Any questions on building codes?
Nope.
Okay, we'll move into new business, which is 6.1. Consider approval of IGA to provide stable funding for the Condon swimming pool. So just for the record and to recap, the county, city of Condon, and school district are all in a partnership for the Condon swimming pool. In essence, the city leases the pool from the school district and then provides the administrative functions for that. And then the county provides the funding. So the IGA that we have between the city and the county is set to expire later this month. The city, I've been working with Catherine, the city has requested that we consider extending the agreement for another 3 years, and that would be pending their continued lease from the school district. So if something falls through on their lease with the school district, then this agreement would go away as well. And then also to see if we could up the amount that we provide annually to $60,000. Currently, the agreement is $50,000, and that's mostly, I mean, we've got minimum wage jumps and things like that, and just other, other inflation, other expenses that have gone up over time. How that works is every year Catherine does the final accounting, so she'll take all of the expenses minus any revenue that comes in from swimming lessons and pool admissions, and then sends an invoice to the county. So that $60,000 would be up to, but we actually just pay actual costs based on what the city's actual expenses are after Catherine does all of the revenue and expenses. So anyway, I'm bringing this back to you. The funds normally come from the recreational revolving fund line item, which comes out of the SIPs fund, and there's plenty of funds to cover that increase. So far it's really the only thing we take out of that line item, and there's way more than $60,000 in there for the upcoming year. So with that, my recommendation would be that we approve the amended IGA.
Thank you for answering that, because that was my question. If it was reimbursable type of situation, and that's kind of the way I remembered, but that was my main question, is that the way it worked? And so I'm okay with the increased amount.
Yeah, this it's something I think we need to continue to support. So I move to approve the intergovernmental agreement to provide stable funding for the Condon swimming pool as presented.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded that we approve the intergovernmental agreement to provide stable funding for the Condon swimming pool as presented. Is there further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay, the motion carries. Catherine, we'll get that signed and sent over to you this afternoon or first thing tomorrow.
Okay, thank you. They're looking at it at council tonight, so that'll be great. Thanks.
Perfect. Thanks. Okay, we'll move on to 6.2, and I see Rob's up. This is just a quarterly update from PCDC on the housing stuff. When I was going through the memorandum of understanding, I realized that that agreement had PCDC coming to see us quarterly, and I had been neglectful in getting Rob on our schedule. So I thought this was a good opportunity for him to just sort of walk through where they are in the funding and any projects they have coming up and give a good opportunity to ask questions. So I'll turn it over to you, Rob.
Can you hear me?
Yep,
Okay, good.
you
I've had
sound great.
had some problems with my mic, so I just want to make sure. Actually, the program started a little bit slowly in 2018, but last year it really started to take off. And unfortunately, the COVID thing hit in March, and we had 4 projects ready to go for this summer that 2 of them have dropped off. But from the pipeline that I sent you, you can see that we have had some good success in building single family homes in Arlington. We're working on our 3rd one right now, which will actually be a rental property. It's going to be a 3-bedroom, 2-bath rental, new construction. So that, is what we really are after. The other one that was built was for a teacher in Arlington and her family. And the first one that we built was a spec house. So we've had a little bit of everything, and all those have gone smoothly. We're very fortunate that Charlie Burdick and Dan Evans of China Creek Construction have really jumped into the county and have been willing and more than able to build projects for us. One thing I would want to mention, just because I talked to Charlie this morning, he pointed out that lumber prices since April have gone up by 80%.
Yikes.
And drywall, last summer he said he was paying $6 a sheet. Now it's 22. So one of the things that we talked about in our last board meeting was we may have our top loan amount for a single family is 180,000. And we had talked about we may have to bump that up because of these crazy increases in price. But my bigger concern is I don't think that construction is going to be profitable very long at those types of numbers. So I'm a little concerned about that. What I'm really happy about in Condon is we have taken 4 previously vacant homes that had been sitting for a minimum of 2 years and provided these folks with a rehab grant to bring the property up to standards it needed to be a rental and meet the program. And then they also signed up for a 5-year agreement to keep that property a long-term rental for a minimum of 5 years. So that's 4 houses in Condon is a lot. There's a lot more that we could do. But that's been a good deal. They are grants, so that's money that's not coming back. But I think if you look at 5 years, it's worth the $10,000 to do that. As far as demolition goes, we've demoed 3 properties in Condon. All 3 of the lots then went on the market, and all 3 sold. That's 2 of those are projects that are on hold because of COVID. The owners had planned to build a duplex on one and a single family on the other. Now they're kind of waiting and see what's going to happen with COVID and how we come out of this thing. One thing I wanted to mention that Mr. Lowe had talked about was as far as apartments in Arlington, especially. We're sitting, as you can see, we're still sitting on over $1 million in the program funds. And I would certainly, I have no experience and wouldn't even know where to start building an apartment building, but I would be willing to go to our board and say, maybe we redirect those funds either back to the county and you go forward with them, with somebody who actually can build something like that. Because I don't think we can't turn this money over that fast. And every time we build something, we're not keeping the loan, we're getting that money back. So I just think that right now it's, we have too much money, honestly. And I think there's bigger things out there like apartments, which is a real need. But again, that's not something that I don't think Pioneer doesn't have the experience for a project of that size. So I did kind of want to throw that out there. The board may not agree with me on that, but I think it's true.
Would maybe for consideration might be like an 8-plex or, you know, something just a little bit on a smaller scale than an apartment complex?
Well, again, even an 8-plex, I don't
Right.
have any experience with
Still a lot.
something like that. And I'm comfortable doing single families and those types of things, but I don't think that the county would want me, building 8-plexes with my experience. So I just want to be upfront about that. But that's why I'm saying I'd be willing to, redirect some of our funds if there was somebody that could build something like that and take on the whole project.
That would be great.
So, Rob, I know the city of Condon has been working with the school district on acquiring the grade school property and the baseball field and that kind of stuff. Have you guys started discussions? How's the board feeling about maybe, I know the city is kind of struggling with how they're actually going to get those houses built and what's the best mechanism to get. Is that something the PCDC is contemplating maybe being a partner on, or
yes,
have they discussed that?
Yeah, when I had attended the meeting with the city back in, I think it was January, and this had kind of come up at that point, and then I went to another council meeting. I think that we definitely could and would want to take part in that particular process from the standpoint of building individual, single family homes. That I'm comfortable with, and maybe that's some redirection for funds as well, because that's the kind of thing it's going to take the city to do, because I don't think you're going to find some developer that's going to come all the way down to Condon and develop 6 or 8 homes like that. I think it would be more of a one-off, one at a time kind of deal.
Jordan, I see Jordan's hands up. Do you have a question or comment?
I do. Rob, first, nice to meet you. Do you have any recommendations for the commissioners to be able to go to someone to ask about apartment development, where you don't have the expertise in that? Do you have any recommendations?
I don't really. I have not been involved in any multifamily construction, beyond a duplex, honestly.
Right. Okay, that was my question. Just seeing if you had any idea of where they should go to seek out advice on that.
Catherine, did you have, I think I saw a hand go up for you.
So my question is Rob, it sounds like the Pioneer CDC is interested in being the developer on that property at the school?
I don't think we're interested in being a developer. I'm saying I would be interested in handling the financing of the individual builds.
So basically you would provide loans we would find the builders still.
Right, we would provide loans for the construction, but we certainly would not be the developer of the properties.
Okay, so basically you're going to continue doing what your program's already doing.
Right, what our program is
not
doing, but we would do, that would be should be a big carrot for a developer to look at, 3% construction loans with no origination fees, which is what we do. And so I think that, if you can find a builder that's interested, our program is going to probably be the most attractive thing to them. Although money is so cheap right now that they may not even want to borrow any money.
Okay, and to address Jordan's thing is, We have had a builder contact us about some of the land over on the baseball field, Jordan, and he has built multi-units in Burns, and he's from LeGrand. And so he is interested in the property up here. And so if you had some property in down that direction, I can dig out his name and send it on to you too, if you're the one I need to send it on to. But let me know, because I've had 5 builders approach us about the property and want to do something there. It's just that we can't become the developer due to the restrictions of being a local government, of how much more it would cost to be a developer.
That
But,
answered my question very well right there. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
So Catherine,
Thanks.
Catherine, in regard to the builders that have approached you, they've approached you about the ball field?
Yes.
Good.
And they've also approached us when we get the school building on possibly doing some work on the school building.
Yeah, I have-
Only like 2 of them, but most of them want to build duplexes, and one mentioned multi-housing, the other mentioned a duplex, and the others want to come up and build. And one is a local contractor, which is great. So we're having a discussion about that at our council meeting this evening.
Well, just remember that our grant program does go all the way up to a 4-plex. So if they wanted to build, a 4-plex and sign the 5-year agreement, they could get a grant of $40,000, which would, I think, be a pretty good carrot as well.
Yeah. And so Jordan, you might need to know that too, is if you find a board, or if you find something, a 4-plex, CDC does have a grant program to at least offset 40,000 of that cost if it's a rental. So, okay, thanks.
Thank you.
Great.
And Jordan, we could also, on a multifamily, we can loan up to 270,000 versus the 180 that we can loan on a single family.
Thank you for that information.
So questions, commissioners, any questions for Rob, or even Catherine, if you have questions about the city's plans on the school property? Any questions for Rob or Catherine?
I don't at this time. Thank you so much for what you're doing, Rob. It's really improving our community in many ways. I think we need to explore some properties here in Arlington to see if we can snag some of Catherine's developers and get something going here as well. So we'll look into that as well. If you know of something, Rob, let me know.
Well, we certainly, one of the things about the program that we came up with was we wanted it to be one that was going to, kind of stir the market. You get people to see that you can build single family homes in Gilliam County and sell them profitably. And I think that, as China Creek goes along, we've actually got 2 more in the queue for Arlington. So that would be 5 new houses that we would have financed in Arlington just in 2 years.
That's great.
I'm guessing that's probably more than's been built in the last 5 years.
Yeah,
But
that's great.
but Charlie is having the same issue that all contractors have. They're having a hard time finding people to work, to keep these projects going, because with multiple projects in the same neighborhood up on the hill there, it would be economically more attractive for them to have a couple going at a time, so that they, when they have their subs come in, they could just, work on both of them and that type of thing. But everybody is so busy right now because, housing's booming because of the low rates. To me, it seems kind of crazy that in this time of uncertainty and, kind of job loss in a lot of ways, that people are this fired up, but they are. We have to recognize it. But no, we're going to keep going as much as we can. And like I say, we have a lot of money that we're sitting on that we really want to get out there, to the public. But we need more than one builder to do that, especially down into Condon area. It'd be nice if we could, And Charlie would like to come down here too, but he's got, 3 houses right now in Arlington to build.
Yeah, don't steal him.
Well, he's got a duplex here in Condon he's supposed to be building. So
I was gonna ask you about that. Is that one? That's the one that's going to be across from the courthouse, right?
yes, yeah,
Yeah.
and Charlie bought that and was going to, China Creek actually was going to build it and own it, or they are going to build it and own it. So I said, hey, you got to get down here to the south end and get started on that thing. But he said most likely next summer, probably is what it's looking at now.
Great. So just out of curiosity, because I've noticed, the real estate market in Condon, I mean, houses are right now going up on Friday and sold by Monday morning kind of thing. Is that the same in Arlington, or is it taking a little bit longer for things to move for some of these new builds that they're doing at the north end?
Honestly, both ends are really moving, pretty quickly. Condon's even more so, like you say, it's 2 days on the market and boom, they go. And I can, in Arlington, there were some properties that were overpriced for a while. And I think that once some other things started being sold that were very similar, they, realized the error in their ways. And it's that market thing again, though, where once you prove that you can build something and sell it, then other people start to take notice of that. And
Right.
that's what we hope the program would do. It's a shame that COVID has come along and kind of slowed it a little bit, but we're just fortunate that we have been relatively healthy here compared to the rest of the state and the rest of the country.
Yeah, good job, Gilliam County people, for washing your hands, wearing your masks, staying 6 feet away.
Healthy.
Keep it up.
Yeah.
Any other questions for Rob while we've got him here? Commissioners or even members of the public that have questions about what PCDC is working on? And if you've got questions, obviously about any of the programs that they have, if you're a developer or know a developer, it sounds like we need more of those. So please send people to Rob and he can get you connected and let you know what's available and get more of these things in the pipeline.
Thank you,
All
Rob.
right, it doesn't look like we have any more questions, but thank you so much for your time, Rob. This was great.
Thanks for having me and keep me on the schedule, would you?
Thanks,
Will
Rob.
do. I'm going to have Teresa make a note. Every 3 months, we'll see you.
Okay, I hope so.
Thanks, Rob.
You're welcome.
Thank
Thanks.
you.
Okay, so let's move on to announcements and next meeting. So our next meeting, regular meeting, will be September 16th, so 2 weeks from today. We are planning on doing a work session prior to that. That would start at 8, and that's so we can start to look at the Economic Enhancement Ordinance. I sat down with Nathan and Kelly and Chet about a week or so ago, and we went through that line by line. So commissioners, my plan is to sort of show you a red line version of what staff is recommending, not dissimilar from when, say, Michelle brings the conditional use permits or things before us and kind of shows us what the Planning Commission had advised. I'm planning on doing something very similar. Again, most of the things that we're looking at are administrative in nature. So some of it is cleaning up language that's a little clunky. Some of it is fixing things where maybe something, the last time they took it up, they maybe fixed or changed a percentage on one page, but not on another page. So making sure those are all in alignment. And then the other piece is that the assessor's office needed some clarity on the homestead rebate, specifically as it relates to married couples who are separated and how we wanted to handle those payments, because that's come up a couple of times and there's not really any clarity in the policy. So that's really the impetus behind this, but since we were opening it anyway, we wanted to take advantage of it being open to clean up some of the other clunkiness, if you will. So my intention, and so I'm putting this out there into the universe so that those who receive host fees don't freak out about it. Our intention is not to tinker with those percentages at all, other than just to clean up things like sometimes we reference that those funds go into a fund and sometimes a line item, and there's a big distinction, Kelly will tell us, between that when you're talking about local government budgets. And so there's just some little things like that that we need to clean up, but it should probably be like a 2-hour conversation, I'm guessing.
So really nothing new. This has been the last time we talked about doing a review of the Economic Enhancement Ordinance.
Yeah, so we were not talking about doing any major changes other than providing some administrative clarity for Chet on that issue of the married couples who are separated. And then since we have it open and are going through that process, there's some clunkiness in the language that would be helpful. You know, and the treasurer is trying to implement it. Sometimes the language kind of contradicts itself or creates steps that really are unnecessary, as you'll see as we go through.
So remind me what is involved in the process besides public hearings and meetings and all of that. I'm just wondering about doing an early review on this when it's a 5-year review normally, and I think it's been about 3 years since it was reviewed. I'm just curious as to what the time commitment is on doing this to just clean up language and things like that.
Yeah, so I think it'll be about a 2-hour work session in 2 weeks. Then there's a public hearing component to that. Normally when we do public hearings, we go to both communities, but seeing as we're meeting on Zoom, I think we would just have one public hearing because everybody has the same access to it. So depending on how much public interest there is on that, and then it's just a simple, it's that 2-part step of reading of the ordinance. So that would just be part of our regular court agenda. So we're talking about 2 hours of a work session, and then depending on what the public interest is during the hearing itself, you know, that we usually just include that as part of our court agenda. So I'm thinking that will just be part of one of those meetings, probably in October, to give us enough time to notice and do all the things that we need to do legally to let folks know that we're discussing it. But I'm not thinking it's going to be a heavy lift once we get through the work session. That'll be the most lengthy part of the discussion, and then of course receiving feedback from the community.
Okay.
I'll make it as painless as possible.
Well, I kind of like actually the fact that Zoom, you know, that we can take care of the public hearings on both ends all in one fell swoop. So that sounds all right.
Yeah, it should be pretty, like I said, it'll work in probably very smoothly with our regular agendas. I'm not thinking we're going to need extra meetings or anything like that other than this initial work session. So
it's kind of early.
I know. The assessor really wants some clarity on some of those issues so he doesn't have to try to make a judgment call on policy. So yeah, it shouldn't, like I said, shouldn't be too much of a heavy lift. Other announcements or meetings that are upcoming, I'm just checking my calendar really quick to see if there's anything else that I think the Frontier Telenet Board is likely going to meet here in a couple of weeks. We should be getting back bids for the Roosevelt Tower project. I think those were due back on the 14th, so sometime that week. We haven't set a specific date, but we're likely to meet later in the week of the 14th to take up those bids and a few other administrative sort of odds and ends. Nothing really heavy there. And then that's the only one that I've sort of got coming up besides the next court meeting. Do you guys have any meetings or things that are coming up or projects you're working on that you wanted to flag?
I'll go first. we're still working with the potential of leasing the wheat lab. So that's an ongoing project that Lisa and I are working on. Right now it looks rather favorable, so keep your fingers crossed that is, we're able to pull that off. Norcor next on Thursday the 17th, and Capco on Friday the 25th. The Capco staff was kind enough to spend 2 hours with me prior to the meeting last week, and it was very informational. It was nice to get to meet them, although we were in this format, but it was still, it was great. So I'm getting indoctrinated into the Capco world. So very, and that's it for me.
Great. How about you, Leslie? What's going on in your world?
Well, our North Central Public Health District meeting was canceled in August, but we're still proceeding with the hiring process of a director. The second round of interviews have taken place and no decision has been made yet. And, oh, my phone's ringing. What else? Oh, I was able to watch our last meeting, and I apologize for not being here at the last meeting. Kimberly, Lindsay, and I have tried to connect several times and haven't been able to catch each other, but that's still on my list. And I do have just a real quick bridge update on the Lone Rock Bridge. I spoke with Anderson Perry, the project manager. He informed me that the steel bridge was recently delivered and set in place. So that was pretty exciting. Road work is occurring this week, and the job is 65 to 70% completed.
Yay!
Numbers problems. It's on schedule. So, that's excellent as well. Substantial completion date per the contract is October 12th. So,
Great.
Bridge is exciting work, and it's moving along on schedule.
Awesome. The only other thing while I'm thinking too, and since we've got some members of the public here, is that we are moving forward with our strategic planning process. So each of us had submitted back some initial feedback to Lisa. She's taken that to use to draft some questions for a community survey. And then I've been working with Lisa on that actual survey where we're like 99% done. After we get off this call, I'll be wrapping that up. And so we're planning on sending out just a little newsletter. It's not going to be very, very heavy, letting folks know where they can go to complete that survey, and then also some election information that the clerk has asked for us to get out to the public. So for those who are watching or listening, we will have a link up on the website as well. I should make a plug that while you're on the website, please consider signing up for our electronic e-newsletter. It comes out once a quarter. It's a good way, in addition to listening to our county court meetings, to be up to speed on what all of the different departments are working on, their projects. So I'm just going to put in that plug. You can put in your email address at the website and control your subscription. So if you decide down the road you aren't as interested or something happens and you don't want it, you can always cancel it. And then if you're one of the old school folks who really just likes the paper copy, you can call here at the county court office and we'll put you on the list, and we can still mail out printed copies as well. So other than that, I think that's all I had. Anything else from either of you before we wrap things up?
I don't have anything. We always talk at the same time.
I think you were both saying, no, we're good.
No, we're good. We're good.
Okay, well, it is 11:05, and I will go ahead and adjourn the meeting.